The third call changed my life forever. I almost ignored it. The warehouse was roaring with its usual chaos, forklifts backing up, pallets crashing onto concrete, co-workers yelling over the machines. My phone had already vibrated twice in the last 10 minutes, and I figured another unknown number meant another scam. I couldn't have been more wrong. My name is Daniel Reyes, and until that Tuesday afternoon, I believed my marriage was unbreakable. I slipped my phone from my pocket and answered without much thought. "Hello?" A calm female voice replied, neither nervous nor emotional. "Is this Daniel Reyes?" "Yes." She paused just long enough to make my stomach tighten. "Your wife is in room 216 at the Ridgecrest Hotel and with another man." Everything around me disappeared. The noise, the machines, the people, even the heavy pallet jack in my hands suddenly felt impossible to hold. I slowly lowered it onto the floor before it slipped from my shaking fingers. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "You heard me. There has to be some mistake." "There isn't." Before I could ask another question, she added quietly, "Check your phone in 30 seconds. The call ended. I stood frozen beneath the warehouse lights, staring at my screen as though it had become a loaded weapon. 30 seconds later, a video arrived. My hands trembled as I pressed play. The timestamp showed it had been recorded less than 2 hours earlier. Then I saw her. Marissa, my wife. She stepped out of a silver sedan wearing the yellow sundress I'd surprised her with on our anniversary only weeks earlier. She looked beautiful. Her hair was carefully styled, her makeup flawless, and she wore the same smile she'd given me that morning before leaving home. She'd kissed me goodbye. She told me she was spending the afternoon helping her mother clean out the attic. Instead, another man's arm wrapped comfortably around her waist. She laughed at something he whispered before leaning into him naturally, like she'd done it 100 times before. They walked together toward room 216. She already had the key card ready. No hesitation. No nervous glance around the parking lot. Just confidence, like she'd been there before. The door opened. They disappeared inside together. The video ended. I replayed it again and again. Each time I searched desperately for something that would prove I was mistaken. Maybe it wasn't really her. Maybe there was some innocent explanation. Maybe, but there wasn't. Every replay shattered another piece of the life I'd spent 11 years building. We had been together since high school. 8 years married. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. We paid our bills, spent Sundays with her parents, talked about children, saved for a bigger house. I'd worked overtime at the warehouse for years so Marissa could leave the stressful job she hated. Every sacrifice had felt worthwhile because I believed we were building something together. Apparently, I had been building alone. The pain hit first. It felt like someone had wrapped steel cables around my chest and kept tightening them. Breathing became difficult. My vision blurred. Then something unexpected replaced the heartbreak. Not anger, not rage. Clarity. Ice-cold clarity. I slipped my phone into my pocket and walked across the warehouse toward my supervisor's office. Rick looked up the moment I entered. He'd known me for 5 years. One glance at my face told him everything wasn't okay. "Daniel, what's happened?" "I need emergency leave." He removed his glasses and studied me carefully. "You sure you're all right?" I answered honestly. "No." Silence filled the room. Finally, Rick nodded. "Take whatever time you need." As I turned to leave, he called after me. "Don't do anything you'll regret." I stopped at the doorway without looking back. "I won't." Walking through the parking lot felt surreal. The bright afternoon sun seemed completely disconnected from the darkness swallowing my thoughts. Inside my truck, I stared at the steering wheel for several long minutes. Most betrayed husbands would have driven straight to the hotel. I almost did. Then another thought entered my mind. Marissa loved 2 things more than anything: her reputation and the respect of her parents. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Cynthia Holloway's number. She answered on the second ring. "Daniel, is everything all right?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "No," I kept my voice steady. "Cynthia, I need you and Paul to come to the Ridgecrest Hotel immediately." "What happened?" I closed my eyes. "Please, just trust me." There was a long silence. Then she answered softly, "We're coming." I ended the call, started my truck, and drove toward the hotel. For the first time since receiving that anonymous phone call, I wasn't chasing answers anymore. I was driving straight toward the truth. The hotel parking lot was almost full when I arrived. Instead of pulling into the entrance, I parked across the street where I had a clear view of the front doors. My hands rested on the steering wheel, surprisingly steady now. The panic had disappeared. Only certainty remained. A few minutes later, I saw the familiar silver sedan belonging to my in-laws. Paul and Cynthia Holloway stepped out together. Both looked confused. Both looked worried. Neither of them had any idea that the next few minutes would destroy everything they believed about their daughter. I watched them disappear through the hotel entrance before checking the time. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. Long enough to reach the second floor. Long enough to knock on room 216. Long enough for Marissa to open the door expecting housekeeping instead of her parents. Only then did I leave my truck. The elevator seemed painfully slow. As the doors opened, raised voices echoed through the hallway. Confusion. Shock. Someone was crying. I walked toward room 216 and found the door standing wide open. Cynthia stood frozen in the hallway, one hand covering her mouth. Paul looked as though every ounce of strength had been drained from his body. And in the doorway, there was Marissa. She wore nothing but a hastily tied white hotel robe. Her carefully styled hair was a mess. The smile I'd seen in the video was gone, replaced by absolute terror. Behind her, a half-dressed man scrambled to pull on his clothes. Nobody noticed me until I quietly spoke. "Hello, Marissa?" Every head turned. Her face instantly lost what little color remained. "Daniel," my name barely escaped her lips. This isn't what it looks like." I couldn't help shaking my head. "It looks exactly like what it is." Paul slowly turned toward his daughter. His voice cracked. "Tell me he's wrong." Marissa burst into tears. "It was a mistake. Just once. I swear." The words hung uselessly in the air. Nobody believed them. Not even her. The other man finally stepped forward. "Look, everyone needs to calm down." He never finished. Paul's fist slammed into his jaw with surprising force. The stranger crashed against the wall, stunned into silence. "You stay out of this," Paul growled. "If you have any decency left, leave." Without another word, the man grabbed his shirt and shoes before rushing past us, too embarrassed to make eye contact. The room suddenly felt painfully quiet. Marissa reached toward me. "Daniel, please. I love you." I stepped backward. "No, you love having someone who trusted you. You loved knowing I'd never question where you were. You loved the life we built, but you didn't love me enough to protect it." Fresh tears streamed down her face. "I made one terrible decision." I looked directly into her eyes. "No, you made hundreds." Every lie. Every fake smile. Every fake goodbye. Every morning you kissed me before meeting someone else. Those were all decisions. She collapsed onto the edge of the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. For a brief moment, I remembered the 17-year-old girl I'd fallen in love with. The woman I thought would grow old beside me. But that woman no longer existed. Maybe she hadn't for a long time. I quietly removed my wedding ring. For years it had represented loyalty. Now it felt like nothing more than cold metal. I placed it carefully on the nightstand beside her. "You can keep everything else, but you can't keep me." I turned toward the door. Behind me, Cynthia finally found her voice. "I don't even recognize you anymore." Paul stared at the floor before speaking. "You didn't just betray your husband. You broke this family." Neither parent followed their daughter as she cried. Neither asked me to forgive her, because some betrayals leave nothing worth saving. Wow. The divorce was finalized months later. I kept working at the warehouse. Slowly, life became peaceful again. Not because the pain disappeared, but because the lies did. I bought a small apartment, filled it with things I chose for myself, and learned that starting over wasn't the same as failing. One evening, my phone buzzed. It wasn't Marissa. I'd blocked her long ago. It was Cynthia. Her message was short. "Thinking about you today. Hope you're doing well. Love, Mom." I smiled sadly. Family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes it's defined by the people who choose honesty over excuses. Looking back, I realized the anonymous phone call hadn't ruined my life. It had rescued it. The hardest truth I ever heard became the beginning of the most peaceful chapter I'd ever lived. Because a relationship built on lies will always collapse. But a life rebuilt on truth can never be shaken.